The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. And in that studio, we have Assemblyman Phil Palmesano. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, Frank. Good to be with you again.
Well, it was nice that you called in last week. How was it? How was the energy tour around Washington? Or just the tour in general?
The tour was fantastic. I mean, it was a working tour. I mean, we met with the Energy Department, which obviously I was very happy about. We met with the Department of Health and Human Services. We met with the Education Department. We met with Veterans Services. We also met with part of the administration's team briefly. So we got around Washington and we saw some things. And, of course, one of the highlights for me was to participate in the press conference with our Congressman Nick Langworthy, our next governor, Lee Stefanik, talking about the importance of the Energy Choice Act, especially given the policies that are being implemented here in New York State. But it was a great working trip, and it was just nice to see our colleagues. Saw Mike Lawler, saw Claudia Tenney, who I served with in the Assembly, and I served with Mike in the Assembly. So it was just a nice working trip.
Well, I know the press conference itself was great. And it looks like the Energy Choice Act is gaining momentum.
It is, and I think rightfully so, because, I mean, you see some of these policies from some states like New York that are basically trying to take away energy choice. I mean, the governor, talks a good game about saying all of the above strategy, but the problem is her policies are not matching her words. Same thing with the draft energy plan. I mean, the draft energy plan says a lot of the right things. It talks about all the above approach. It talks about affordable and reliable. It talks about fuel diversity. But unfortunately, the policies that I keep reiterating, the policies that the governor is advancing, the progressive socialists in the legislature are advancing, totally contradict that message. And that's not a positive thing.
Do you think it's going to get worse? And we're going to get back to energy. But now that Mamdani won, do you think that kind of the Democrat socialists in the Assembly and in the Senate are going to feel more emboldened?
Oh, absolutely. And you can already see it. I mean, I have a number of my members on Democratic side of the aisle. I'm already hearing getting primaried. And they created a mess for themselves because they were adamant on passing taxpayer-funded campaigns. So now you see a number of these people qualifying for that, making it more difficult for them to run for a re-election because of this as well. So that they're upset about it, but they created it. But those are the types of policies that are actually being advanced by the socialists in the legislature, unfortunately.
Yeah, and think about, since we're talking about election, obviously when we talked about the electric building mandate, Governor Hochul is already realizing how disastrous the energy policies are, and she's got to worry about a very tough race for her against Lee Stefanik. So I think we're going to be duped here for a little bit, aren't we?
Well, I think so. I mean, she did it on cap and invest. She did it on all electric buildings, and she wants to get through the election. I mean, even on the all electric buildings, and it was a good pause to have because a lot of people weren't aware of it. I met with a gentleman who was trying to build a house, and he wasn't even aware about it, 2 months away. I mean, there's a process to go through for that. You had to get building permits. It takes some time. It doesn't just happen overnight. So if you didn't have a permit by now anyway, you'd probably be in trouble, or they'd be rushing to get it. Yeah, but I mean, the all-electric buildings, like the cost side of it, the cap and invest. I mean, we're talking about when I get into costs and affordability later. I mean, you're talking about a plan that's going to increase the prices of the pump by their own number, 62 cents a gallon, increase natural gas home heating costs by 80%. Wow. All-Electric Buildings Act, the builders say, will increase building costs by upwards of $25,000. And here's a staggering statistic that they've cited: for every $1,000 increase in the price of a home, it takes 7,000 people away from home ownership.
Wow.
That's not what we want.
At that time when we talk about affordable housing. Isn't it?
It's mind-blowing
so
to me.
Hypocritical on all of this. But we were talking, and we had Joe Semplinsky on not that long ago, and we got talking about energy because people are passionate about it. And to your point, so many people were not aware that the electric house mandate was coming through because it was 3 years ago they passed it or whatever. They do their virtue signaling. They're saving the planet. But then all of a sudden the real world effects sneak up on you.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can look at from a whole host of it. All this really, the premise starts from when we passed what they call the CLCPA, the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, basically the Green New Deal for New York. It's supposed to be by 70% renewables by 2030, but the biggest one is by 2040. It's supposed to be net zero generation. Basically, all our generation is supposed to come from fossil fuels, so no natural gas, despite the fact that 60% of New Yorkers heat their homes with natural gas, despite the fact that 40% of our generation comes from natural gas. So you have policies like that, and then they've implemented these policies in the budget. The governor is quick to say, well, they passed the CLCPA when she wasn't there, but they passed the All Electric Buildings Act under her watch. They passed the Cap and Invest under her watch. ACT regulation, advanced clean car regulation, which will devastate the auto industry and the trucking industry in New York, passed under her watch. The all-electric school bus mandate, the mother of all unfunded mandates, that passed under Governor Hochul. So I don't know what she's trying to pass the buck on. She owns this.
I know.
Even her spokesperson, when he delayed the All-Electric Buildings Act, said, we're committed to this. I mean, so, and then in another breath, she's like, we need affordable and reliable energy. Well, everything she's enacting, the legislature's acting, is anything but affordable or reliable.
Right. Isn't it interesting when something like that happens, the environmental extremists turn on Hochul for a little bit? Yeah. I mean, that goes to show you how much adherence they have to the kind of this gospel of green energy policy.
Well, that's what I said all along. I mean, I remember there was one study that came out and said a couple of years ago, Governor Hochul had both Basil Sagos and Dorian Harris, the co-chairs of the Climate Action Council, which kind of devised the goals and ambitions for the CLCPA, had them go out and try to make people aware, and it landed with a thud because she did it after the budget. Just the methodology when we passed the CLCPA says we use a 20-year methodology. Every other state uses a 100-year methodology. Yeah. U.S. uses a 100-year methodology. International Code uses a 100-year methodology. If we do not just change the methodology to 100 years, we don't have to change anything else. It will increase prices at the pump by 62 cents a gallon. It's increase natural gas home heating costs by 79%. So you have that coupled with the cap and invest. I mean, they kind of work hand in hand. But those were their things. But she wouldn't put it in her budget. And I questioned Dorian Harris at a budget hearing. I'm like, well, is the governor okay with these prices increasing? And if not, why doesn't she put it in her budget? She says, well, she's trying to do this. I know what she's trying to do, but if she wants leverage, she will put it in her budget. Same thing with this all-electric buildings at cap and invest. If she's really serious about pausing this, she needs to put these in her budget come January. Right. That's when you know she's serious about it. Otherwise, she's basically, her timeline, I think, is just to get through 2026.
I agree.
It's unfortunate.
And to your point, I like how she always blames, as if she hasn't been there long enough. She always blames Cuomo for so many things. I mean, at what point are you governor for as many years as she's been that you have to start taking kind of credit for some of this?
Exactly. Well, she's quick to blame everything. Not only that, I mean, listen, all the viewers know the rising utility rates are crippling with no end in sight. And what does Governor Hochul, and I'm not saying the utilities are innocent in this, but what does Governor Hochul do? She comes out and criticizes the utility. What do some of my Democrat, socialist colleagues come out? They blame the utility, saying it's greed. But they fail to look in the mirror and recognize it's, in fact, their green mandates that are creating this fiscal crisis for New York families and businesses on the utility side of the thing. They don't want to stop and look at their policies and see it. In fact, even one such, this total plan that they're talking about, estimates are over $250 billion to even up to upwards of $500 billion, according to the Empire Center. In July of 2023, the PSC approved $43 billion in future ratepayer increases specifically to pay for the green mandates, as they clarified it. So even the former commissioner of the PSC, John Howard's out there being very vocal, a Democrat, criticizing the policy, saying we need to pause. We had an affordability, it was never taken into consideration.
No. And something else I guess we're just supposed to ignore is the grid. The grid's not there. I know we talked about it, you and I, a million times, but we're just supposed to kind of ignore that we're not ready, the technology isn't there?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, basically, I always say people in businesses especially, they care about two things when it comes to their energy policy. Not necessarily green. They care about affordable and reliable. Of course. If you can't get affordable and reliable energy policy in New York, you will go elsewhere, and people already are. Just on the reliability side, and we can get back to the affordability because there's a whole list of them. Yeah. On the reliability side for the viewer, we have this organization called the New York Independent System Operators. They're tasked with making sure, managing the grid, making sure the heat stays on, the lights stay on, the power stays on. And they've come up with both short and long-term warnings, red flags in the grid. The short-term warnings are in the next 5 years, especially for downstate, saying that there's gaps, there's not enough coming on while more is leaving. Retiring fossil fuel plants, and that's problematic. But the bigger point I try to point out is the long term. By 2040, to meet the net zero generation that they talk about, we need 27 to 45 gigawatts. And I sound kind of nerdy, just for the viewer. 1 gigawatt is the equivalent of powering 750,000 homes. Our total generating capacity in New York, with everything, wind, solar, hydro, natural gas, nuclear, and oil, is 41 gigawatts. So the New York Independent System Operators are saying we need 27 to 45 gigawatts of dispatchable emission-free resources. by 2040. And wind and solar does not count because it's not dispatchable. Right. It's intermittent. So the technology, what is it going to be? Is it going to be advanced nuclear? And I believe nuclear needs to be part of the equation. Number one, because I mean it's clean, but it's dispatchable, reliable.
Right.
And from land use perspective, and we could talk about that as well, compared to wind and solar. I mean the amount of land you need for a nuclear power plant or a facility. If you look at Indian Point, which was shut down by Governor Cuomo, brilliant move, which provided 25% of the power to New York City. Yeah. That's a 2,000 megawatt, 2 gigawatt facility on 240 acres. If you look at solar, you need 8 acres per megawatt. The Climate Action Council plan calls for 60 gigawatts of solar. That's 480,000 acres of land. Where do you think they're going to take that land? Upstate New York. They're not going to take it. There's no land in New York City. It's not going to be all rooftop solar.
Right.
So nuclear is superior to wind and solar by land use, dispatchable, and reliable energy. So those are things. So that's the problem. And natural gas is often referred to as a bridge fuel. You don't tear down a bridge before you build a new one. Right. But that's exactly what Governor Hochul, with her policies that she's advancing and embracing, and the Democrats and socialists in Albany are providing. I mean, an energy policy that is not affordable, not reliable, not feasible, not safe, not embracing fuel diversity or energy choice.
Right. And it's such a mess because I don't think, going back to what we talked about with the electric buildings, people just aren't aware of this.
They aren't.
Because I think if you hear the news reports, you hear Hochul blaming the utilities, and then the utilities become the bad guys. And again, they're not perfect, but so when that bill comes in, she's not getting the blame that she deserves, or Albany's not getting the blame they deserve.
Well, of course, what they want to do is pass the buck and say it's all the PSC's fault. They always want to pass the buck. I mean, even the spokesperson for the governor, this is how ignorant. And I told them they have to get a new line. They blame the president and the tariffs. I mean, these policies have been implemented since 2019. For the viewer, here's a fact. In 2019, the residential electricity rate for electricity was 17 cents a kilowatt hour. This year, it's almost 26 cents a kilowatt. It's over 25 cents a kilowatt hour. That's 40% higher than the national average. That's that much higher than Pennsylvania. So if businesses are looking for affordable energy, where are they going to go? They're going to go elsewhere.
Right. We got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In that studio, Assemblyman Phil Palmesano. Let's go to some viewer comments. Comment from this viewer: I find it ironic that Democrats defend Comey. He was the reason Trump beat Hillary in 2016. His great work saved the country then. His work after 2020 got Trump elected again in 2024. I think you were talking Comey earlier. I think you could guess. Ken writes in, as usual, I learned something new and important during every Frankly Speaking show. Well, thank you. I wondered why Marjorie Taylor Greene would wait until January to resign from Congress. It is now obvious that she waited to get vested so she could start receiving her $130,000 plus a year pension after only 5 years of service when she turned 62 in about 11 years. What a great deal we give our politicians. Good point. Thank you, Ken. And I'm not going to ask conspiracy theories. Someone wanted me to start asking you all the tough conspiracy theory questions. But they say, thank you for all your hard work, Phil. I hope that you guys have a great day and a happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. So we'll save the conspiracy theories for some other day, okay?
Sounds good.
Let's talk about more about the press conference. And that was basically for the Energy Choice Act, but they asked you to speak, correct me if I'm wrong, because you know energy in New York like the back of your hand.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, that was, I've talked about this issue. I've done several, this was the third press conference I did with Congressman Langworthy on the Energy Choice Act. The other two were in Elmira. But I mean, it was pretty cool, if I could say, and really surreal to be doing a press conference with the background of the U.S. Capitol behind me. But to talk about a very, very important issue, Congressman Langworthy's Energy Choice Act, to be there with Elise Stefanik, to be there with my former colleagues Mike Lawler and Claudia Tenney, and our majority of our Republican Assembly conference, and our leader Will Barkley, Leader Barkley and myself were asked to speak, and it was pretty surreal. But it's an important issue. I mean, and to put it in the context, I talked about how the governor's talking about all the above, but their policies aren't matching words. And here's the context to put it in for New Yorkers, which I don't understand. This summer, in June of 2025, there was a poll out, and it said 71% of New Yorkers do not want a ban on natural gas, including 76% of independents. That same poll said 2/3 of New Yorkers want a balance between renewable resources and natural gas. including 74% of Democrats. And also that same poll said 82% of New Yorkers said the utility bills are too high. You don't need a poll to tell us that. We know that. But the message of that poll is very clear. One, New Yorkers want energy choice. New Yorkers want affordable and reliable energy. But unfortunately, the policies being advanced here in New York aren't matching that. Affordability, reliability, feasibility, energy choice are not part of the discussion. It's just really actually a march to the full electrification of the grid, which is not able to handle it. And what I've said, their policies that are being advanced by this governor and by the Democrats and progressive socialists in Albany is simply designed to dismantle the affordable and reliable natural gas infrastructure supply and delivery system. Again, given the fact that, despite the fact that 60% of New Yorkers heat their homes with natural gas, despite the fact that 40% of our generation comes from natural gas, it's totally designed to take away consumer choice on how you heat your home, cook your food, power your building, and the vehicle you drive. It will jeopardize the reliability of the grid, leading to dangerous and deadly blackouts, and it will continue our nation leading out migration of more New York families, farmers, small businesses, and manufacturers leaving the state.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I think even with the building mandate, but in general, we're at a time when there's a mass exodus in New York State of people and businesses. When you see these big companies moving to Pennsylvania, Texas, wherever, why would anybody even consider moving their business or starting their business here in New York?
I don't know. It is pretty concerning. I mean, I have a mayor of New York City who's talking about increasing taxes more.
I know.
I mean, do they not realize the financial sector is really the heart and soul of the economy for New York City, but also for New York State, because 15 to 20% of our revenues come from that. You already see the financial sector moving out. They're moving to Miami. They're moving to Dallas. Dallas is getting ready to open up their stock exchange. I mean, the way things are mobile and with technology are today, you do not have to be in New York City to be a part of the financial industry. You just do not.
No.
And the one example I give the poll, I remember this poll, this one staggering number that kind of stood up to me. In 2000, we lost 3.57 million New Yorkers with an average income of $140,000. We're replaced by 3.5 million New Yorkers with an average income of $80,000 a year. But it was a net loss of 70,000 New Yorkers, but a net loss of $34 billion in taxable income. What does that tell you? And so they can say tax the rich all they want, but ultimately you're going to run out of those people who are going to leave because they're the most mobile they can leave. You're going to have no choice but to ask for New Yorkers to pay more in taxes to pay for all these free programs. Like he wants to get free bus service, free child care. That's not going to work. And then you have the same things there. You're talking about people want to change the healthcare system with the New York Health Act that's being talked about now with everything, and that's $250. That's $250 billion in and of itself too. So we have $250 billion energy policy, $250 billion healthcare plan out there that they're talking about, and our total state budget's $250 billion, and we are losing more New Yorkers. That just relates that more New Yorkers are going to pay more money.
Exactly, and I think it's very scary that Hochul's so afraid of, I guess, a DSA primary challenge or whatever, or Mamdani's supporters, that she looks like she's going to cave into all of his demands.
It is pretty scary. What's going to be interesting, the two keys I always try to tell people to look at is what she puts in her budget.
Yeah.
That will say to her what her priorities are, because on some of these energy policies, she needs to put them in her budget. And I met with the governor's energy liaison, and I've talked to them. I said, if she's serious about this, she will put this in her budget. I mean, stand up and do the right thing for New York. She says she wants to. She talks that, but again, the policies aren't backing the words.
Yeah. And I think when you have the high costs, that's why she's going to continue to go blame the utility companies, because she does have that tight race with Elise Stefanik, and Stefanik's going to be able to hit her on all these and her support for Mamdani. That's going to be campaign ad number one.
I can almost envision the video. Remember that the Coldplay concert where the guy was up in the stands with the woman holding their arms around her?
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be kind of like the same thing with Mamdani holding his arms around her, or vice versa.
Yeah. And I just can't believe she went all in on Mamdani. He has yet to endorse her. That's awkward.
He did not.
I think there could be some rumblings of a primary challenge, which would be great if she had it. I mean, I know there's already one, her lieutenant governor, but I mean one where that you have the Democratic Socialists of America now energized and run against her, and it'll be interesting because she'll change her positions at the drop of a hat.
I did see on the Democratic Socialist, there was an article I caught briefly, I think it was this morning or last night, where there was a DSA person who was trying to run against Hakeem Jeffries.
Yeah, I know.
And they try to stifle that. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens within how all this plays out. But a lot of my colleagues in the Democratic Assembly, I'm hearing, are getting primaries from DSA members.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know the Empire Report had a list of some of the people primaried. And like you said, Hakeem Jeffries, the bigger names, the Mamdanis, the AOCs asked the other guy to step down, but that doesn't mean he's going to.
No.
And I just think her concern, Hochul, for his supporters, which again, I know he won, but it was 50, just a little over 50% in New York City. But she wants to cater her message to them.
I don't know. It's really disturbing. It's very scary.
Mm-hmm. I agree. But we better take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. I got to remember what break we're on here, Phil. We're having too much fun. There we go. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Joining us in the studio this morning, Assemblyman Phil Palmesano. Just quickly, a comment from a viewer. Mark writes in, the Energy Choice Act is a great thing, but I bet we will never see utility bills go back down because of Hochul forcing NYSEG to reinforce the grid. Probably. I mean, they got to build up on the grid.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. And I mean, the PSC chairman at a hearing, and when I kind of question, isn't it the green policies? He's like, well, it's the aging infrastructure. Yeah, we have an aging infrastructure, of course. But the rate of electrification, how fast they're making us move forward with this electrification, that's why you have these utilities. And they don't care. They're making money off it.
Yeah.
But they have to invest in, wires and poles and versus pipelines, because they don't want, they feel like that's where the priority needs to be. And I think we need pipelines, and I think we need natural gas.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of this, because we've talked about this a lot, Phil, where do you keep the passion for energy policy? This is not everybody's hobby, energy policy and what's coming out of Albany. So what is it that drives you when you talk about these things?
Well, it touches everything we do. This is my 15th year in the Assembly. Mm-hmm. This is my 13th year as the ranking member on the Assembly Energy Committee.
Right. When
I first went there, we asked for committee assignments. This was the first committee choice I asked to our leader at the time, Brian Cole, before. Oh, yeah. So I was on the committee the first 2 years, but when the person who was a ranker left, I went to him and said, I really like to be energy ranker, and I'll work at this, and I have. Mm-hmm. And I'm proud of that. But, the CLCP that we talked about, we passed that 3 years in a row. It wasn't until the Democrats took control of the Senate that it became law.
Right.
I debated that bill on the floor for 30 minutes straight, 3 years in a row, because pointing out all the flaws that we talked about, the policies that come up, talking about the cost over and over again. Mm-hmm. I talked about some of the costs. A couple of the costs I didn't mention was that I've talked about in the past. Just to convert your home over from natural gas to electric. You're talking about 3 different studies saying $30,000 to $50,000 for what senior citizen on a fixed income, what disabled veteran can afford that? Even the draft energy plan, even though it says all the right things, to get to net zero generation, the viewer said, what about the energy bills? To get to net zero generation, that scenario would increase prices for New Yorkers. This is a month, not overall, $449 a month. That's what they're looking at. That's how completely out of touch they are. And it frustrates me when I hear Governor Hochul say she's for an all-of-the-above approach, but then you just look at her policies and the policies that have been enacted over the past several years. First, you have the fracking ban. Then you have the denial of the pipeline projects. Now we're seeing them happen again because I think of other issues that were in play with this. I see denial of air permits for new natural gas power plants. Also see denial of air permits for existing natural gas power plants. We have Greenwich up in Yates County, in my district. They denied the permit for that for several years. Finally, they just renewed it for a 5-year period, which is a good thing in my opinion. We have the CLCPA, you have the cap and invest, which I talked about will increase prices at pump. According to their own former DEC commissioner, 62 cents a gallon, increase prices for natural gas 80%. The All Electric Buildings Act that we talked about, the EV mandate, the mother of all unfunded mandates, the EV school bus, the ACT regulation, which will devastate the trucking industry in New York, which requires a ratio of buying electric trucks versus the number of ICE trucks you have. And it's not feasible. There's no electric charging infrastructure in the state of New York for heavy duty. I mean, the problems with that, the electric mandates, all this, and the thing I get frustrated about, we're doing all this in the name of climate change or global emissions. Here's the shocking thing that, and I talk about, there's so many problems with this plan that's going to hurt New Yorkers.
Right.
But New York only contributes 0.4% of total global emissions. China contributes 30%, has 1,000 coal plants, and building more each and every week. I explained earlier, our gigawatt, we're 41 gigawatts of generating capacity in New York. China expanded their coal generating capacity 2 years ago by 95 gigawatts. I mean, that's double our total generating capacity just in coal. How does that make sense? And I remember Joe Biden, and I didn't agree with Joe Biden on much of anything, but I did agree with him when he said this. He said, if China's not with us, we're wasting our time. Well, Joe was right on this one. We're wasting our time because China's not going to with us. And if you want to throw two more, if you throw India and Russia, that's 40%. Are those three countries going to help us meet, and here in New York, meet our clean energy goals? We can get down to zero, but we won't do anything to affect global emissions. But we will dismantle our economy, and we will drive more families and farmers and small businesses and manufacturers out of our state of New York. I talked about the reliability, about keeping heats on. I talked about the affordability. The feasibility, it requires a massive build out of the grid beyond just the dispatch, but we need to like triple to 120 gigawatts of generating capacity to meet that mandate. That frustrates me. Property taxes, people don't recognize that property generators pay $1.7 billion a year in property taxes. The utilities, I mean, the gas, they pay on the amount of gas that goes through. If they're not allowed to put gas through their pipes, they're just going to depreciate that asset. Then those property taxes aren't going to go away. It's going to be passed along to the rest of the consumers. The land use, I talked about that. I mean, how much land use you need for nuclear versus how much land use you need for solar. You need the same thing. You need 30 acres per megawatt of wind. I mean, and you see all this coming up over our land. The one issue, though, that I don't talk about on this show that I'd love to talk about that really frustrates me, and I bring this up to environmentalists. I mean, the materials, and we talk about how foolish the electric school bus mandate, the EV mandates are. But what my colleagues in the legislature don't want to talk about is the materials used to make the battery to power the electric vehicle or the electric school bus. Two of the main ingredients is cobalt and lithium. 70% of the cobalt is extracted in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Well documented that they use child labor, some as young as 6 years old. These individuals, these kids go into these artesian mines, they refer to them in a hand mine, and come out with bags of cobalt, rock. These mines have collapsed on them, paralyzed them, they've lost limbs, they've died. I mean, that's what's happening with the extraction of this material. They don't want to talk about that. And if you want to go to the environmental degradation, lithium, the lithium triangle in South America, Argentina, Chile, and Bolivia, well documented the lithium, the mine, it's radioactive. They're poisoning water, rivers, and streams in those South American countries to mine and get for this lithium, because we need lithium and cobalt to produce batteries to power the electric vehicles. It's almost like, to my colleagues, it's okay if it's happening over there.
Right.
As long as it's happening over there, it doesn't matter. Yeah. If kids were dying here or getting paralyzed in New York or in the U.S., if water, rivers, or streams were being poisoned here, it would not be acceptable. It wouldn't stand. And that's why I brought this up to an environmentalist group when we had a hearing on utility rate increases. And I said, she goes, well, I'm looking at the child asthma. I know what your talking points are, but you don't like fracking wells. You don't like oil rigs. Do you see any children working on them? Right. Of course you don't.
No, of course not.
And then the final point with this, too, that I bring up when I talk about this, besides that, is energy security. Mm-hmm. I mean, I talk about the materials, the rare earth materials being extracted in the Congo or the South American lithium triangle in these poorer countries. It's processed in China. Mm-hmm. China controls the processing of the rare earth material market, and you see that even in the U.S. trying to deal with them in negotiations from that perspective. So 90% of that material is controlled by China. Same thing with solar. 90% of the solar is manufactured and processed in China. How is this helping us meet our energy security goals when they won't even let us tap the natural gas that's underneath our feet in New York State? Exactly. I don't understand it. Yeah, I'm passionate about it because this issue touches every single New York family, farmer, small business, senior citizen, veteran. This is an issue that impacts our economy. It's just an issue that I will continue to learn and grow about, and I'm passionate about it. I get very frustrated about it. My blood pressure rises when I talk about it. If you can't tell, my voice I talk faster, so I'm trying to calm down, and I apologize for the viewer, but it's just something that I've just been really kind of geared into. I'll talk to anyone who wants to talk about it, but it's just, I can talk for as little about it or as long as you want about it.
Well, we didn't even mention, really, just in passing the bus mandate, the electric bus mandate. And I just think if people complain about their school budgets now, imagine when that's up for a vote and they see that number.
Well, Frank, and to the viewer, this is I refer to as the mother of all unfunded mandates. This makes no sense whatsoever. Let's just talk about first cost. You get a near zero emission diesel bus. It's about $125,000 to $150,000. An all electric school bus is about $400,000 to $450,000. That's triple the cost. The Empire Center did a study saying it would cost $8 to $15 billion in replacement costs just for the buses. Then you have the electric vehicle infrastructure, the battery infrastructure that you have to develop, billions of dollars, upgrading bus garages and things of that nature. And then the grid improvements. I mean, we did a press conference a couple of years ago. We had Horsehead School Superintendent and Shenandoah School Superintendent. They said, Shenandoah said that it was going to cost them $30 million to put in a substation, basically to power the grid to the buses. And that was going to be borne totally by the property taxpayers.
Right.
Then you get the range issues. I mean, you have these bus routes. Steuben County is 1,400 square miles. It's bigger in the state of Rhode Island. You have to go a morning route and an afternoon route. How are they going to be able to do this? What they're going to have to do is they're going to have more buses. That's the problem.
Yeah.
What about when they go for a state tournament and travel 4 hours
they
away?
Won't be able to.
How are they going to be able to travel to get there? I mean, in charge. I mean, that's going to be very, very problematic. I mean, it's one thing. So you have the range issue, the battery issue, and here's another thing. Fires. That's the other thing I didn't talk about, the fires.
Yeah.
These things burn hot and long. You've seen the battery fires in New York City in the apartments with the scooters. You've seen the battery fires in cars. You've seen Moss Landing in California. We had 3 battery storage fires in New York a couple of years ago. If one of those school buses catch on fire, those kids are dead, period. No chance to get off because the batteries are right underneath them. If you have a fire on a school bus, diesel bus, well, it's in the engine's in the front. They might have a chance, but if there's right underneath them, that goes up so quick, they don't have a chance. And what I'm afraid is going to happen is, because they have this mandate, they're going to, voters vote on school bus purchases right now, and they're turning them down. Ultimately, I think the state's going to take that right to vote away from them.
I do too.
Because
there's no way they'll get them through.
There's no way they'll get them through.
I mean, if you look at Corning and Horsehead and some of the places that have struggled in the past just to get their school budget passed, you add on top of that proposition at the bottom.
Yeah. Well, and here's the hypocrisy of the state of New York. Forget about cost. Forget about reliability. Forget about range issues, feasibility. The state of New York is asking school districts to convert their entire heavy-duty fleet by 2035. Begin purchasing 2027. Yeah, there's a little couple delays. They can get some pauses till 2031. There's a couple, but ultimately the law says they have to convert their entire fleet by 2035. The state of New York does not have to convert their heavy-duty fleet till 2040.
Yeah.
A full 5 years after our schools.
They're the guinea pigs.
Yeah, why are we asking our school districts to be the guinea pig for this social experiment?
Yeah.
And the property taxpayers, the state should do it first. And we put in a bill to say, okay, you can't purchase, the schools don't have to purchase a school bus until 2045 instead of 2027, or until the state of New York converts their heavy-duty fleet.
Yeah.
Whatever one happens later. So they have to let the state show they can do it. Let's make sure that the batteries are produced with U.S. sourcing and not using child labor.
Right.
Let's do a cost-benefit analysis and see how much this is going to cost. This was all passed without a cost-benefit analysis. Let's do a feasibility study. Work with the NYSO and the utilities to see what the grid needs to do to handle it. They did none of this. They're just advancing it to virtual signal because they think it's better for the environment. And it makes no sense whatsoever.
I don't even know if it's about the environment or it's just they get their press conference and they get their news article.
Well, they say they're for the environment. I mean, we got members who are saying that we get dinged as being anti-environment. Listen, I'm not saying we shouldn't be investing in renewable technology. We should, and we are. But it should be part of our portfolio. Just like your 401k, you don't put it on stocks, cash, and bonds. What do? You diversify it to protect it, to make it more resilient. We should be doing the same thing with our energy portfolio. We should have fuel diversity. And when you have fuel diversity with a balance of nuclear, with a balance of natural gas, and with the balance of renewables, like 2/3 of New Yorkers want, including 74% of Democrats, including the poor, that's when you'll have a safety and a resilient grid and a strong grid that can meet the demands of the future industries and the businesses that want to be here and stay here and grow here.
Right. We got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In that studio, Assemblyman Phil Palmesano. Phil, do you get nervous when you see an announcement like on Empire Report where it says prison closure from the whole, because you don't know where it's going to be?
You don't know where it's going to be. I mean, last year's budget, and interesting in the budget when she presented it, there were no prison closures.
Yeah.
Then after the work protests, strike, whatever you call it, I call it a work protest because they were protesting the working conditions, safety,
right,
the quality of life. They protested, and I visited with COs at
I know you did.
Elmira, 5 Points in Groveland, in and around my area. It was never about money.
No.
It was about quality of life. It was about their safety with the HALT Act. And what we've seen under Governor Cuomo and Governor Hochul is a constant closure of these correctional facilities. I mean, I remember when they closed Monterey Shock, which was a bastion for helping improve the quality of life for individuals and giving them a second chance. I don't understand it. They've closed well over 25, 26 prisons since 2011. And all you've seen is the violence and assaults continue to go up. So you have the prison closures jamming more inmates into fewer facilities, coupled with policies that make it more difficult for these CEOs to do the job and do it safely. And specifically, I'd refer to the HALT Act. This has been a terrible thing for our corrections officers. Basically, the HALT Act, for the viewers, it's an acronym for, I think, Human Alternatives to Living. It's basically about dealing with segregated confinement, the ability to segregate our most dangerous inmates from the rest of the general population. They refer to it as solitary confinement and torture. It's neither, because people have constant interaction with people when they're in segregated confinement. But it's a way for our corrections officers to be safe while doing their job. So if someone's disruptive, if someone's violent, they can segregate them from the rest of the general population. So it doesn't just help the corrections officers, it helps the other inmates. And since its implementation 3 years ago, here are the numbers. Inmate on staff assaults have increased 76%, going from over 1,000 up to over 2,000. But inmate on inmate assaults, which if they care about the inmates, has increased over 169%, from over 1,000 to upwards of 3,000. And in the same breath, contraband seizures have happened in that period of time, increased during that period of time by 32%. So really, with these prison closures coupled with these failed and dangerous policies, have really created a dangerous powder keg environment inside our correctional facilities. And they say that there's a staffing shortage. Of course there's a staffing shortage. Governor Hochul fired 2,000 plus corrections officers. Instead of bringing them back and welcoming them back, saying, listen, we understand, she fired them, blackballed them. I mean, she should be welcoming them back. I mean, that's why we have the shortage. So they're bringing the National Guard to help with the problem. We have a staffing shortage. If you want to keep corrections officers, we should do a few different things. One, we should pay them more money, give them better benefits, including the death gamble. And for the death gamble, what that would means is you secure your pension retirement after 25 years as a corrections officer.
Right.
So if you continue working at 25, 28, because you want to stay there, help your your colleagues and everybody. If you were to die, you would just get a death benefit 3 times your annual salary. But instead of getting a pension for your spouse at 25 years, what the death gamble would do is ensure that pension would be secured for the spouse of that family member who dedicated their lives for a very dangerous job to keep us safe. And that doesn't make sense. We give them better pay, better benefits. Death gamble. Help them with their time. That's going to help recruit. Give them hiring bonuses. Give them retention bonuses. Right. I mean, I said to the commissioner at a budget hearing once, I mean, there's staffing shortages in nursing home and hospitals too. You don't see them shutting them down. No, you give them recruitment bonuses. You give them retention bonuses. You pay them better. You give them better benefits. That's what we should be doing for our corrections officers, because they work a very dangerous job to keep us safe. Now, they got a lot of attention during the protest or strike. Most people, when they go drive by Elmira Correctional Facility, see that they don't know what's going on in there. They don't want to know. They just know they want the bad guys to stay in there. But they got a little taste of it when they talk to this corrections officers. Unless you have someone who's in corrections, a family member, you don't know how bad it is in there. They're under constant assault, and they don't feel like we have their backs. Unfortunately, what the governor and everyone is doing is stabbing them in the back, and you make these closures even worse because you do it in 90 days. Right. Especially during the holidays, 90 days is not enough time to uproot your family, move to another house, a new school district. Now, some people say, well, with this one, and this one might be a little bit easier because it's in the North Country. It's only one, thank God. Yeah. It shouldn't be any, but still, it's disruptive to a family. It's disruptive to a quality of life. But under the law, it's supposed to be a 1-year notification. Yeah. Why can't we give them the 1-year notification? But the legislature continues to kowtow to Governor Hochul, just like they did to Governor Cuomo, and allow for these 90-day closures. in my opinion, that's just an insult and slap in the face to these brave and dedicated corrections officers who do this dangerous job to keep us safe. So now we're closing another prison. They're consolidating another prison up in Collins, which Collins was the first facility to really start the work protest. Right. So it makes you wonder if they were targeted. Who knows? But it's just as these policies, the words that come out, it seems like they're more with our criminal justice policies are being enacted since one party control. It seems like the laws of justice are tipping the scales of justice in favor of the criminal over the law-abiding citizen, over public safety, over law enforcement, over crime victims, and it's just wrong.
Yep, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Thank you to everybody who sent in all these great comments. Even Climate Fact Friday Bob coming out of retirement for one. We're going to read them at the beginning of tomorrow's program because we are almost out of time, Phil. And there's two things: getting away from energy, getting away from prisons. How's our buddies at the Gorilla Bots robotics team?
Oh, that was fun.
Aren't they? They're great.
We do a lot in this shop, but to be able to go celebrate these bright young students and their accomplishments. The Gorilla Bots team comprised of students from Corning, Elmira, and Horseheads. I think it's Corning and Horseheads school districts. But they won first place in the regionals here in New York, and it allowed them to qualify for the World Championships in Houston, Texas, in April. And they finished first in the division, ranked I think 26th in the world. That's great. What you look at these young men and women and what their accomplishment, their futures are so bright. It makes you feel proud about the future. Just an incredible accomplishment. So Senator O'Mara, someone friend and I were there to present them with resolutions and a proclamation.
That's great. And we are out of time, Phil, but quickly, when is the Salvation Army bell ringing challenge?
Monday, December 7th and Tuesday, December 8th.
All right, the 7th is the Democrats. The 8th, Republicans will keep you updated on that. We'll keep promoting it. So, Phil, thanks so much for being on the program this morning.
Thanks for having me.
We covered a lot.
Yes, we did. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving. We'll be right back with we'll be back tomorrow with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. I look forward to it already.